By the time you read this, most people's New Year's resolutions are already over. And by the time you hear or watch this video, it'll be just a distant memory. They're back to doing the same things that they used to do. They said they were going to change things. Like for me, forever was lose weight, make more money, work fewer hours, be around for the family maybe more. Maybe you even have a few of these yourself, things that you want to do. So here's the thing, setting goals is easy. It's the follow through on the plan of action that really will either create or not create what you want to have happen. And that's the tough part. A famous writer once said, a goal without a plan is just a wish. That said, there's a process that I've discovered for energizing goals properly. And the first step is to put those goals, or just a goal, in writing. And that may sound obvious to you, but you'd be surprised at how many people are really pushed back when I made that recommendation to them. They resisted very strongly. And the reason I believe they do is because if you never write it, you can't ever be wrong. If you never pick a date to get it done, well, you can never be, slacker. And that's the problem there. It's not about judgment. I mean, at the end, I always say there's, no goal police that's going to come and take your firstborn or your dog. This is really for yourself, but without putting it down in writing, that's a problem. And I also believe, the hand to mind connection is very strong. Now, typing to mind is okay, but writing these things out really make a big difference. And then you can put it whatever you want. You can always be perfect in your mind. And that's because there's nothing tangible to it. Remind you of what you said by looking at your goals means that you have to confront that you may not be there, or you may not have gotten started, or maybe you failed. But there's no harm in that. And also, negative messages that go on in our head all the time are really destructive. We have to really know what we're saying to ourselves. And that's really a problem. You might push your goals away because you feel you don't deserve to reach those goals. And you may reach these goals, but don't feel that you should be able to keep them and go even more. Here's the thing, a goal is just a destination. That's the plan that you create to get to your goal is what I consider your map, for those who are old enough, or your GPS. And that's it. You will inevitably learn new things along the way. That's just part of the journey if you get started. And that may cause you to adjust the goal or just a plan to get to it. And even if you fall short, you'll almost certainly be better off than where you started. And if you hadn't tried at all. As I told one client who was stressing over this, that really, again, it's just you who's being hard on yourself. But until you do this and get those goals in writing and be looking at them and making them and planning and implementing, nothing's going to change. Now, once you've written down your goal, you need to do some work on those to make sure that it's real and tangible as you describe it. So let's say your goal is you want to have a $10 million a year sales at your company this year. Now, for most of it, that's a big goal, and that's great. So how are you going to do that? Well, part of it, let's breaking it down and making your goal more realistic is each truck has to do a minimum of $250,000 per sale in sales per year. So the math becomes easy. It's 4 trucks to make $1 million a year in sale times 10 million means you need to get 40 trucks on the road every day rolling to get to your 10 million goal. This is when a goal really becomes real. The better you describe the goal, meaning with numbers and clear pictures, the better chance you've got of going to, staying at, and even exceeding where you had wanted to go with your goals. But wait a minute, is growing the business to 40 trucks, which is a great business goal, really in alignment with your own personal goals? Now, if you're at $1 million a year in sales today, and you want to be 10 million in 12 months from now, What are you willing to sacrifice personally to make that happen? To go from $1 million to 10 million in 1 year? I've asked this question of many of my contractor clients and said, I'd love to be at 10 million next year, but I don't want to interrupt my surfing lesson or my yoga classes, and I have to be home at 5 o'clock every day for the kids. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if that's the case, there needs to be some alignment between your personal goals and your business goals, or there's going to be a problem. So maybe you move the goal back to more like 2 million. And maybe that's even a stretch, depending on what you're willing to do to make that happen. Here's an example from my own life. As a contractor, before we had operating manuals at my family's company, vacations were nightmares. And my beeper, yeah, I know it's old. My beeper would go off constantly and my big mobile phone would be ringing. And in fact, no day went on that, there wasn't some kind of chaotic mess. There'd be an SOS from the office, if you will, and the field staff was trying to get to me and customers and everything else. You know what? I have to tell you, I was really tired of it. I told my wife, I'm going to be around less often, which I know you're asking yourself, what does that mean? Well, here's what my wife said. How can you be around less than you already are? And I said, well, I'm going to spend the next 2 years focused on putting in the procedures, training young, willing people to fill all the boxes on the org chart so that when you and I go on vacation 2 years from now, we'll actually be able to sit on a beach somewhere and actually be on vacation instead of always being disrupted. Now, I don't know why I picked that 2 years, but I know I had a clear picture of what it is I wanted. So here's the great news. For me and my wife, we got there. I made a decision to sacrifice some short-term personal freedom to create enduring freedom down the road for myself, my family, my people who worked with me, and improve the lives of the customers we served. So I hope this inspires you. The point is, if you're going to have a big ambitious goal, it has to somehow match with your personal goals. They can't be totally disconnected. Or one will negate the other. The personal goals, either consciously or subconsciously, will likely win out. That's why you want to write the type of goals for your personal and your business and look at them next to each other. It's really a great check. I'd still do that to today, by the way, every year. And then I look at it weekly to make sure that I'm not off course. I do the GPS correction. So let's say your business and personal goals are in line and you think you can get to 40 trucks, get that $10 million business. The next step is to figure out what are the 30 most important actions that you need to take this year to get to that. And that's what I call the top 30, which are your projects, your habits, and that comprises a list that you work on. Now, no one can work on 30. I don't care how much money, how big your company is, it's impossible, it's chaotic. So you need to boil it down and get to your top 5. What are the 5 things you need to be working on, no matter how crazy your week is, working on it because you said you want to be that. Now, the project or habit that will remove the biggest obstacles and create this explosive growth that you need to get to, which is 40 trucks, those are the ones that get to the top of your list. Now, once you've identified these 5 projects, the deal is no matter how crazy the week, the month, the quarter is, you promise to spend at least 2 hours a week working on making those projects and habits come to fruition. This is what Michael Gerber described in eMyth, is working on the business and not just in it. Otherwise, nothing really is going to change. To stay on top of all of this, I suggest you add it into what I call a meeting with me. And I do that to this day. This is a 30-minute mini meeting or an hour, depending on what you need. This meeting with me is for myself at the same time every week, and I particularly use Sunday, and you can use whatever day works for you. This is where I review my goals and my projects and check to see if I'm still on track. Looking at these lists and goals and top projects weekly at least keeps them in the top of my mind and allows me to make minor course corrections as I go along the way. The same will be true for you. One client, a former football player, described it this way. Can you imagine playing 3/4 of the game without ever knowing what the score is, and you only discover in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter that you're already down 21 points? So checking in weekly to make sure you're moving forward constantly is essential to your long-term success. If you've already set business goals for the upcoming year, great. But don't stop there. Write them down and acid test them against your personal goals. Right-size them if need be, and then commit to paper the top 5 projects and habits. Now, you can put it into a project management system. I just want you to be looking at it and start working on them today. Then review your goals and your projects every week and watch them blossom into reality for you.